Anne here, and this is More Than a Love Interest, the show where we talk about the arcs of female characters in film. Today, we are going over all of Natasha Romanoff's appearances in the MCU. We are getting into Natasha's overall character arc in the MCU, how her relationships with other characters have developed, and why her solo movie had to come out in Phase 4. Let's get started.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun.
Alright, to start us off, because of Black Widow, there is now a character arc for Natasha that we can at least infer across her multiple appearances. So let's talk about that. As usual, we will be using Maureen Murdoch's Heroine's Journey. The first step is the separation from the feminine. For Natasha, I would say her overall feminine is her Russian roots, and specifically her family construct in Ohio.
No, leave it. Go wait in the car.
When we meet her, she is separated from this, and it is preventing her from self-actualizing. She is presumably satisfied with her job being the biggest part of her life.
I'm a S.H.I.E.L.D. shadow. Once we knew you were ill, I was tasked to you by Director Fury.
S.H.I.E.L.D. monitors potential threats.
She's using it to atone for her past mistakes.
I got red in my ledger. I'd like to wipe it out.
And her loyalty to S.H.I.E.L.D. and to Fury is unquestioning in her first two appearances. And part of her third one.
How'd you open? Your heart stopped.
Why all the secrecy? Why not just tell us?
I wasn't sure who to trust.
She is an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., but doesn't have much outside of that in her life.
You just tear things up. You're a triple imposter. I've never seen anything like it. Is there anything real about you?
Obviously, this was also the writing in her first couple of appearances, and the fact that she was not a major character in terms of story structure. But I think it makes sense to suggest that she is clearly missing something from her life, and she doesn't yet know what that is. The second step is gaining masculine allies. This one is very easy and short to talk about. It's the Avengers.
Yeah, who's we?
I don't know. Whoever's left.
Guys,
Call it, Captain.
They certainly seem to be the answer to what she was missing,
His family.
though that will come up again in a couple steps, just you wait. The Road of Trials is the third step, where the heroine faces monsters and dragons with her allies. And so that is the end of Avengers and most of Winter Soldier, beginning of Age of Ultron. You could argue that she gets to the next step in Winter Soldier, but I think these are still just trials for her.
but we're also the ones best qualified to defend it.
Now, it is emotional for her to bring down S.H.I.E.L.D., but it doesn't rattle her as much as it would have if she didn't have her masculine allies to fall back on.
I guess I just traded in the KGB for Hydra.
She has grown beyond just being a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent and wants more than that, as well as metatextually being more fleshed out, so it makes sense for her to want more.
I blew all my covers. I gotta go figure out a new one.
It might take a while.
I'm counting on it.
Instead of unfaltering loyalty to a system,
You lie and kill in the service of liars and killers.
That's impossible. S.H.I.E.L.D. would have stopped you.
she has friends who are important to her outside of work, as well as developing a more obvious moral compass.
None of that's your fault, Steve.
Are you sure you're ready for the world to see you as you really are?
Are you?
Hydra was selling you lies, not intelligence.
The fourth step is the illusion of success, where the masculine allies are starting to not be enough. This is Age of Ultron for Nat, and specifically her budding relationship with Bruce. I have opinions about that, see my other video, but since she no longer has S.H.I.E.L.D., she is starting to want more for herself.
I'm running with it. With you.
Now, she was aware that her family in Ohio was not real, of course. But she is searching for a family, and she's enjoying living in the Avengers Tower with everyone, having that found family.
And? Widow?
Oh, no, that's not a question I need answered.
She likes Bruce, and she wants to take that further.
So we just disappear?
We also get, of course, her relationship with Clint and his family, which are shown in this movie to be pretty strong.
Why don't you hug her and find out? That's little Natasha.
She's Nathaniel.
So all of these things are showing how she can have more than just a job and how she can have a family again, even if she can't biologically have one.
They have a graduation ceremony.
We even get that Fury and some remnants of S.H.I.E.L.D. remain, so she hasn't lost everything.
Glad you like the view, Romanoff. It's about to get better.
Except... the lowest point for our heroine is the fifth step. Nat may get over Bruce leaving, but cracks are showing in her found family.
I'm gonna miss these little talks of ours.
It's time for me to tap out.
And then it ruptures entirely.
This is gonna end well.
She's obviously grown significantly from the Nat we met in Avengers, who only fought the Chitauri because...
I've been compromised.
but is now saying that...
Staying together is more important than how we stay together.
which is a pretty big jump for her to have made. She isn't saying that it's important for the Avengers to exist as an entity on the side of good, like she might have said earlier in her journey.
Are you here to kill me, Miss Romanoff?
No, of course not. I'm here on behalf of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Well, then what are you doing here?
I didn't want you to be alone.
She's saying that she wants her family to stick together.
It'd be great if we had a Hulk.
You really think he'd be on our side?
So she's devastated after Civil War, which is mostly shown in Black Widow. She has now lost both S.H.I.E.L.D. and the Avengers, presumably doesn't know where Fury or Steve are, and is completely on her own.
I have friends.
People who have friends don't call me.
So she's a little lost regarding what to do next. The whole of Black Widow is the descent for Nat, where she goes to a dark place and comes out reaffirming her identity. She has to revisit things she had hoped were definitively behind her, both her Russian family and all of that fallout.
And you? You got out. Dreykov made sure no one could escape.
And then actually go back to the Red Room to take it down.
Thank you for your cooperation.
So her descent is leaving the world where she's on a magazine.
Except I'm not the one that's on the cover of a magazine.
Going off the grid and having to rethink what is important to her and what her purpose in life even is.
I chose to go west to become an Avenger. They treated me like family.
She thought her masculine allies were what she was missing, but she was wrong.
Where is that family now?
Though several characters in Black Widow point out that she is an Avenger.
Not just a spy, but an Avenger.
Imagine what I could do with an Avenger under my control.
The only superhero person that I know.
She obviously doesn't feel like one right now. There is an important contrast between Nat saying this to Bruce,
That I was anything more than the assassin they made me.
and what she says to Yelena.
All that time that I spent posing, I was trying to actually do something good.
Yelena is pushing her, but this movie reaffirms to Nat in the next couple steps that this is what she wants to do. Helping people is her purpose.
Let me help you.
And I'm not gonna leave you.
The seventh step is also shown in Black Widow. At the beginning of the movie, she urgently yearns to reconnect with the Avengers, but she can't, of course. She thinks it's an impossibility.
I'm actually better on my own.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
So instead, we see her reconnect with her past. At the beginning of her journey, she was separated from her family, and though she tried to find a new one,
This family.
she needs to reconcile with this one.
Family. Back together again.
No matter how grudging she may be at the beginning, it's pretty essential for her to rebuild those relationships.
What?
That wasn't real. Who
Don't
cares?
say that.
It was real to me too.
The urgency also comes from the need to help the other widows. She had thought that the death of Antonia was worth saving all of her sisters, but finds out that she was not successful,
Dreykov's dead. I killed him.
You don't actually believe that, do you?
and made things immeasurably worse for everyone.
And you? You got out. Dreykov made sure no one could escape.
For this step, then, she is urgently trying to make amends for her past mistakes, which is what reminds her of who she is. a hero.
But you're never gonna do that to anybody ever again. And I'm not gonna leave you.
And no accords or generals can take that away from her.
Is he gone? He's gone.
Then you go and save the world when the world wants to lock you up.
The mother-daughter split is something we get to see healed in a few different ways for Nat. First, there is the more obvious, reconciling with her mother Melina.
Tell me, how did you keep your heart?
And there is also the new understanding of her real mother, who did not abandon her, but who fought to get her back.
She never stopped looking for you. She was like you in that way. She was relentless.
Melina serves as a mirror for Nat, an indication of the future that would have awaited her if she had not escaped.
I've always found it best not to look into the past. I was never given a choice.
If you do this, none of your past is going to remain hidden.
Then why'd you save this? You were just born in a cage, but that's not your fault.
So healing that split also heals herself after the wound of leaving her family.
Your pain only makes you stronger.
Pain only makes us stronger.
The same goes for Yelena and the other widows. Nat heals how she cut off this important aspect of her life, and that helps her accept who she is as a hero as well. The ninth step is mainly off-screen, but Nat does heal the split with a wounded masculine. After reconnecting with her own past, she has hope for the future.
It can work out with the four of us. You know, there may be some hope for the Avengers.
She is able to, in Black Widow, reconcile with her family, with her haunted past, and helps all of the widows break free from the Red Room. It reminds her of how she had help doing the same years ago.
Agent Barton was sent to kill me. He made a different call.
And of how she can still be a hero without being one of the Avengers, the official superhero team.
And if we come to a decision you don't like?
Then you retire.
You're the only superhero person that I know.
So she is ready to go track down the other currently imprisoned Avengers because that is who she is as a person, and she is reclaiming that instead of hiding out.
Now I'm gonna go break a few of them out of prison. See if I can't help patch things up.
So off screen, she breaks them out of prison and they get back to doing some avenging, it seems.
Must have been a rough couple of years.
Yeah, well, the hotels weren't exactly 5-star.
And then on screen, in Infinity War, we see her reconcile with some of Team Iron Man, with Rhodey, at least. So now she is part of the team again. By the end of Infinity War, she reunites with most everyone and is ready to face Thanos.
Sir, I think you should expect quite a big assault.
How we looking?
You'll have my Kingsguard.
He'll die alone, as will you. She's not alone.
Instead, we could say she reaches a roadblock in her healing process because they lose. And that is why she is stuck in the same spot when we see her again, even though 5 years have passed.
Clearly your friend is fine.
She had almost resolved her character arc and was just about ready for wholeness, but then they lost.
I'm still trying to be better.
Finally, we get to Endgame, and Natasha has only one step left on her journey, integrating the masculine and the feminine. And I'd say she did this, but also off screen. She has accepted who she is as a hero, and presumably accepted her past as part of her.
If I move on, who does this?
She is reconciled with her masculine allies, and even gained some new ones.
He's not a raccoon, you know.
Oh, whatever. Eats garbage.
However, she certainly doesn't look like she's in a great place, does she?
I'm about to hit you in the head with a peanut butter sandwich.
No, probably not self-actualized for all that she still seems to dance. She's cut off from Clint in this movie, and we can infer from Yelena.
Will you find out where he's going next?
So she's lost the personifications of both her masculine allies and her feminine. She is separated once again.
Don't give me hope.
I'm sorry I couldn't give it to you sooner.
So because of that, it's gonna take a lot for her to integrate the masculine and the feminine, and she does that in the only way she knows how.
Oh, I don't judge people on their worst mistakes. It's okay.
Well, now I'm sad again. So it certainly looks like she now goes through a whole journey. And Black Widow does a lot of the heavy lifting to make the arc coherent. I think it's pretty impressive that this movie not only had a thorough arc for her in its story, but also contributed significantly to her arc in the MCU overall.
It's funny, my whole life I didn't think I had any family. Turns out I got two, so.
The way Black Widow is set between Civil War and Infinity War was perfect, and definitely hit on the part of Nat's life where there was the most change, but the least screen time. It was a great place to put a movie in general, and the way it addressed her wants and needs that were usually not explicit in all of the other films really makes her arc shine. I'm still sad that her arc ended so tragically, especially because of what we could have gotten going forward. So let's talk about how the adaptation process has worked out for her.
It's a matter of circumstance. It's not all things to all people, all the time. Neither am I.
Okay, for the next very large section, I want to talk about Natasha's relationships over the years and the art of adapting a character who was designed to be one note. When she first appeared in the comics, it was as a honey trap for Tony Stark. She was there to charm him as Madame Natasha while stealing tech for the Soviets. Her first attempt didn't work, so she basically recruited Clint Barton.
Now you sound like you.
But you don't.
Through a similar romantic tactic to get him to help her kill Stark. She does eventually develop feelings for Clint, but not at the start of their relationship.
Well, I have a girlfriend.
So, from her inception, she is embodying fears that specifically affect men. Being like a spider usually means crafty and scheming, you know. Feminine traits, after all.
Because it's really not your style, Rogers.
You're right. It's hers.
And Black Widows kill their mates as soon as they're done with them.
I adore you. But I need the other guy.
Her moniker itself and her position as a female spy make it clear that she is not to be trusted, that she can outwit you. Yes, specifically you.
I've seen worse.
Adapting her to the movies then adds a unique aspect of male gaziness that the other female characters do not have. Like, yeah, I hope that a franchise filmed in the 2010s and later will not linger on the actress's assets. But for Natasha, that also means dealing with a key aspect of her character, namely her ability to be duplicitous, which is seen as being amplified by the fact that she is, well, an attractive lady. Not to do a lot of psychoanalyzing here, but some dudes are certainly going to feel double betrayed if the betrayer was pretty.
You just tear things up. You're a triple imposter. I've never seen anything like it. Is there anything real about you?
So put a pin in that idea and we'll come back to it. Anyway, the point being that how trustworthy Natasha is shown to be is a very gendered question, based on the hang-ups of some bros in the 60s.
I have a very specific skill set.
Nat's gambits are successful against these Russians, Loki, Alexander Pierce, Dreykov, and arguably Ultron and Vanko. I mean, good thing she wasn't in the final act of Civil War, or Zemo's plan would never have worked. I like to imagine the resolution being like this, but I digress. And just think what she could have done by outwitting Thanos. So, in nearly all of her appearances, her skills in being deceitful are instrumental in defeating the villain. You'd think that would make her effective ploys be considered a positive trait, but not all of her teammates seem to think this way.
And tell me what happened. Tell me exactly.
One way this manifests is in what kind of relationships she is allowed to have on screen and how those are developed. Looking at all of the characters in the MCU, we can break them down into 3 categories. 1. People who accept Nat and trust her despite her job. 2. People who are uncomfortable with her capacity for deception. And 3. People who don't have enough screen time with her to be able to tell.
Anybody ever tell you you're a little paranoid?
Not to my face. Why? Did you hear something?
Let's go through that last category first, mainly because I think it is rather telling that nearly all of the other women are here.
Come on.
I didn't write it.
And even other Avengers fit into this category. Plus, it'll be fast.
I have friends, I definitely have friends. Friends, friends, friendly friends. Time to meet my friends.
It does have subcategories though, so here are the people with whom Natasha has definitely spoken at least once, but there isn't much indication that they have a relationship outside of what we see. Yeah, those were basically all of their interactions. They're on the screen.
Thought we wouldn't notice, but we did.
So next, we have characters who presumably have more of a relationship with Natasha just off screen. Other S.H.I.E.L.D. agents like Phil or Maria fall into this category because they presumably know each other well, but we don't see a lot of them interacting.
Who's this guy?
Wanda and Sam were both part of Avengers 2.0 and the Secret Avengers, and there is an implication that they know each other pretty well because of that. Nat seems to be mentoring Wanda, for example, but here are the only times they actually exchange dialogue.
You guys know I can move things with my mind, right? Looking over your shoulder needs to become second nature.
Stay close, check in. Don't take any chances.
I'm sorry. We just wanted time.
That's really gross.
After the time jump, she has another set of Avengers, with whom she at least exchanges emails.
I get emails from a raccoon, so nothing sounds crazy anymore.
Okoye seems to be friends with Nat, and Rhodey actually appears to be one of Nat's closest friends, for all that we almost never see them together.
Nat? Please.
Finally, we have Pepper Potts, who certainly develops a relationship with her while she's undercover, but they never interact again. So I'm not really sure which category works best for her, but she's definitely in the has occasionally been in the same room section.
Please, go away, go away. I've got this handled.
Have you now?
And you tell me who's behind this. Who's behind this?
Step aside. Step aside.
Anyway, all of that listing is to say that sometimes people are nice to Nat and seem to have a solid relationship with her, but it's not shown on screen. And I get that there are a lot of characters in the MCU, but I just want to point out how people who would certainly be closer to her than, say, Steve or Tony, don't get a chance to ever show that. We get to know Phil through Tony.
His first name is Agent.
And Maria through Steve, despite them actively working with Nat.
Natasha. Barton's been compromised.
Ballistics. 3 slugs. No rifling, completely untraceable.
When Wanda gets a character moment, she gets it with Steve instead of Nat, her mentor. I get that this is partly due to them having trilogies while Nat doesn't, but when we have S.H.I.E.L.D. agents, Nat often isn't even there as part of that group. When Nat is co-leading or actually leading a group of Avengers, we still don't get to see much of her with any of the individuals in that team. Like, this moment with Hawkeye is the only time she kind of has a friend in the background. It really undercuts the idea of any of these being her family.
I chose to go west to become an Avenger. They treated me like family.
And I think this is due to that duplicity thing. For us to be kept in the dark about what she's doing, we can't be shown her side of things, which means she's usually on her own. For example, even though she's going to be working closely with Fury at the end of Winter Soldier, we don't get to see them planning things together, or even have them check in with each other in some way, because we don't, of course, know that this is her until the reveal.
Did I step on your moment?
I have friends, I definitely have friends. Friendly friends, time to meet my friends.
However, she does have strong relationships with people who value her skills. Clint Barton and his family love Auntie Nat and do not seem to expect her to deceive them at any moment.
That's bad, right? That seems really shaky.
Fury appreciates how
Agent Romanoff is comfortable with everything.
and seems to be quite fond of her.
I want you to meet Agent Romanoff. Romanoff. Natasha, come on. Glad you like the view, Romanoff. It's about to get better.
And of course, her Russian family, especially Alexei, are very proud of how she's turned her training into being a hero.
Not just a spy, but an Avenger.
Tell me, how did you keep your heart?
Where's an Avenger when you need one?
There's this whole movie about them sorting out their feelings towards each other and working through their respective facades, getting to the point of all trusting each other.
We fight with you.
I'll hold them off.
Natasha, fight.
Nick Fury is fairly mysterious as a character, but his relationship with Natasha is a constant in the early films. It's unfortunate that they never interact after Age of Ultron.
You hope for the best, then make do with what you get.
Nothing lasts forever.
Similarly, the Bartons are only really shown in that movie, but Clint obviously counts Nat as being very dear to him, which she reciprocates, as we see early on and right up until the end.
Just like Budapest all over again.
You and I remember Budapest very differently.
A long way from Budapest.
But what about this line?
Don't you get all decent on me now.
I know they're both posturing a little bit here, but that struck me as a strange thing to say. Because honestly, is there any point at which Nat hasn't been noble? I mean, maybe not explicitly in the beginning, but she certainly has not been shown as being immoral in any way.
Given your service record, both for this country and against it, that you belong in a penitentiary.
Sarà cupo. Courier.
Banner. That's your play. Shut up and put your arm around me. Laugh at something I said.
What?
Do it.
It's hers.
Did I step on your moment?
I own this world.
You seem desperate to impress me. This moron is giving me everything.
Captain America learned how to steal a car.
You can't just steal a guy's car.
So you want me to chase him down and unsteal it?
I saw where you put the keys.
Top drawer green cabinet.
And we're borrowing. Take your feet off the dash.
Go. You shouldn't have gone to all this trouble. I'm done.
May I remind you that the Sokovia Accords have been repealed.
First rule of going on the run is don't run, walk. Stay close, check in. Don't take any chances.
You shouldn't be here.
Neither should you. Today's your lucky day, Alexei. Move to the door on the south wall. Here comes the cavalry.
So what's our plan?
You guys go. I'll stay. One of them's a bit of a mess right now. I'm gonna go break a few of them out of prison. Because you need us, but we're also the ones best qualified to defend it.
It's hard to get a read on you. Where are you from?
Legal?
What if I say no?
I'll persuade you.
Our mission is to rescue hostages.
No, that's your mission.
I was tasked to you by Director Fury.
I have done nothing wrong, ever, in my life.
I know this. And I love you.
Which brings us to the last group of characters, the ones who are not okay with her being a spy.
I have friends, I definitely have friends. Friends, friends, friendly friends. Time to meet my friends.
When they meet, Bruce certainly does not trust her.
I assume the whole place is surrounded.
From his perspective, he is probably right to do so, but the scene isn't indicating that to the audience. We aren't supposed to feel betrayed here. If anything, we're supposed to be glad she's bringing him in.
I've got Stark. You get the big guy.
He still throws it back in her face later, though, when everyone is getting snarky.
Loki is manipulating you.
And you've been doing what exactly?
They do seem to reconcile by the end. At least she appreciates what he can do, and he lets himself be coerced. So in Avengers, their relationship is rocky at best, and certainly tinged with a lot of distrust.
I swear on my life, I will get you out of this. You will walk away and never ever.
Your life!
Fast forward to Age of Ultron, where they've been on a team for a while.
How long before you trust me?
He is still distrustful of her flirting.
No, Natasha, she likes to flirt.
And is alarmed that Steve has seen her flirt.
I've seen her flirt. Up close. What do you mean up close?
Whatever that means. So go ahead and take that pin down, because this is exactly what I was talking about. The only people we have ever, or will ever, see her use a gambit on are villains. And at no point is she flirting with them to get what she wants. While she does pretend to a level of honesty with several of them, prompting them to think they have got one over on her, none of this is romantic at all.
This is my bargain, you mewling quim.
I mean, you can ship whatever you want, but that's not what's happening in the text.
Thank you for your cooperation.
In fact, there is no basis at all for the idea that she is leading men on for her own ends. There really isn't a clear romance as a ploy moment in her entire career that we know of. Yeah, she kisses Steve here, but she's not seducing Steve. She's distracting a completely different group of people.
You still uncomfortable?
It's not exactly the word I would use.
This moment in Iron Man 2 is at least leaning towards romantic, but to what end? There's nothing in the rest of the plot to indicate that she was trying to seduce Tony here.
Is that dirty enough for you?
The closest we ever come to romance as a ploy is here when she kisses Bruce to bring out the Hulk, which, that was an awkward sentence. But there is nothing in the rest of the movie to indicate that she isn't being genuine here. We are probably meant to think that she likes Bruce and wanted to kiss him.
And here comes this guy. Spends his life avoiding the fight because he knows he'll win.
I would say this is a huge part of why the whole Bruce Nat thing was received poorly, since it is unclear if we are now supposed to think that she was lying the whole time to control him, or if she just wanted to get a kiss in before they go fight. But why does he fly off? Oh, right. This movie is just bad, and I sort of think it's entirely possible that this bit, at least, was written with malicious intent.
No, that's not a question I need answered.
That's another video, so anyway, basically in Age of Ultron, Bruce is distrustful of Nat despite her laying everything out there for him, and in the end, he just leaves. When they see each other again, there is a tiny, awkward moment, and then they are basically relegated to, sometimes in the same room, acquaintances.
Hi, Bruce.
Nat.
Taken all together, her canon love interest does not seem to like that her job involves being good at lying, and he subsequently doesn't want much to do with her.
It'd be great if we had a Hulk right about now.
You really think he'd be on our side?
Great. Thanks. I hate it.
Stop lying to me! I'm sorry. That was mean.
So let's move on to Tony.
Agent Romanoff. You miss me?
When they meet, we literally see her through the male gaze, through his gaze. And he is really mad when he finds out she's a spy.
I suggest you apologize. Are you blending in well here, Natalie? Your name is Natalie, isn't it?
Which honestly seems weird to me. It's not like he put any particular trust in her. There was this one moment where his walls weren't all of the way up, but he didn't really share that much with her anyway.
If this was your last birthday party you're ever going to have, how would you celebrate it?
She didn't steal any of his secrets, either technical or personal. She doesn't mess things up with Pepper, so why the ire?
Would you please not do anything awful for 5 seconds?
Who knows? This movie could have used a rewrite or two. If it was intended to adapt the comic where she first appears, it does not set her up as any kind of threat like she was there. When she is revealed to be a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent, that is basically meaningless because we had no reason to suspect she was anything. She hadn't done anything suspicious, so all we had to go on was that Scarlett Johansson probably isn't just here as an assistant. Natalie Rushman just seems to be very good at her job.
He doesn't want to be disturbed. He's downstairs.
Pepper doesn't like her, or Tony's reaction to her, but there's nothing to indicate that there's any real danger of Tony cheating with her, or of letting his guard down for her to gather intel. You would think, given her Russian past and the fact that the villain was Russian...
Your stupid glory days as the Crimson Dynamo.
No, his son.
Anton Vanko was a Soviet physicist who defected to the United States in 1963. His son, Ivan, who is also a physicist.
That it would have been really easy to make that into some kind of tale of suspense. Anyway, they do not interact a whole lot in the first two Avenger movies. He makes some quips, and it's clear that he does not trust her.
Coulson, you know that Stark trusts me about as far as he can throw me.
But he's more concerned about Fury in the trust department, so it doesn't really go anywhere. And in Age of Ultron, most of her storyline is with Bruce or Clint, so nothing there really indicates how he feels about her. If he now trusts her, I mean.
I get it, Maria Hill called you, right? Was she ever not working for you?
And then Civil War happens, and she actually sides with him, much to his surprise. Here their relationship is the strongest, and he listens to her advice, even if He doesn't always follow it, until of course she lets Steve go and tries to explain to him why. He doesn't much care, calling up again how duplicitous she really is.
We played this wrong.
Boy, it must be hard to shake the double agent thing, huh? Sticks in the DNA. T'Challa told Ross what you did, so they're coming for you.
And then they do not see each other again, as far as we know, until Endgame, the first few moments of which they don't interact, and the time jump indicating they haven't spoken since Civil War, and will continue not to. In fact, I don't think they ever speak again after she goes with Steve to try to get his help.
Tony, we have to take a stand.
We did stand, and yet here we are.
Bleecker and Sullivan.
Listening to anything?
Guys, if you pick the right year, there are 3 stones in New York.
Now, this refusal is much more about where Tony is in life than that he still distrusts Nat. But I would say that their relationship is very similar to hers with Bruce. Both of them keep her at an arm's length and do not trust her very far.
You're an actress, buddy. Is she a spy too?
You're fired.
You brought me to the edge of the city. Smart.
Would you please not do anything awful for 5 seconds?
Are you here to kill me, Miss Romanoff?
Are you blending in well here, Natalie?
Not that he's told me.
And he tells you everything.
You are mind-blowingly duplicitous.
I swear on my life and never ever.
Your life! You're a triple imposter. I've never seen anything like it. Is there anything real about you?
Stop lying to me!
You know that Stark trusts me about as far as he can throw me.
How long before you trust me?
You let them go, Nat.
They out of mind.
They're coming for you.
So help me out. I need you.
Boy, it must be hard to shake the double agent thing, huh? Sticks in the DNA.
Even though there are brief moments of confidence, these are short-lived and are, importantly here, never resolved.
Thank you very much, Agent Romanoff.
Well done with the new chess piece.
I've seen worse.
Sorry.
No, we could use a little worse.
Which, considering how much of the MCU has Tony as a key character, really gives the impression of Natasha as untrustworthy overall. And because she is pretty, and most of her screen partners are men, this gives a very gendered impression to a lot of the men watching about who she is as a person.
What'd you just do to me?
Loki is manipulating you.
And you've been doing what exactly?
You lie and kill in the service of liars and killers.
So let's finally talk about Steve. In Avengers, he's pretty unfailingly polite, and honestly the fact that Scarlett Johansson and Chris Evans were already friends is more the relationship they have than anything in the writing.
Did he ask you to sign his Captain America trading cards yet?
Trading cards.
They're vintage.
Steve is more obviously distrustful of Fury, not Natasha, and is quite willing to team up with her when given the opportunity.
Time to go.
Go where?
I'll tell you on the way.
And then, of course, they get close in Winter Soldier. Not that part, I mean this part.
Would you trust me to do it?
I would now.
Unlike the other two, Steve has a much bigger reason to potentially distrust her.
I don't know.
Stop lying.
He knows that S.H.I.E.L.D. is infiltrated with Hydra by this point.
Don't trust anyone.
And at the beginning, he distrusted her because she had a mission he didn't. Except he put the blame where it belonged, on Fury.
You just can't stop yourself from lying, can you?
I didn't lie. Agent Romanoff had a different mission than yours.
Which you didn't feel obliged to share.
Fury is killed and told him not to trust anyone, so it definitely makes sense to doubt Nat, especially when she steals the drive back.
Where did you get it?
Why would I tell you?
But then they team up and she earns his trust, something she keeps for pretty much the rest of the series.
Who do you want me to be?
How about a friend?
They don't spend a lot of time together in Age of Ultron, but they have moments.
Steve doesn't like that kind of talk.
You know what, Romanoff?
I didn't say we should leave. There's worse ways to go.
And even though she's on the other side of Civil War, there is nothing to indicate that he doesn't trust her, only that he has a more important mission.
I'm sorry, Nat. I can't sign it. I should be the one to bring him in.
Why?
Because I'm the one least likely to die trying.
You're not gonna stop.
You know I can't.
And of course, they are friends in Infinity War and Endgame. The 5 years may have been hard and they've drifted apart, but it doesn't seem intentional the way it does for Tony and Bruce.
We did stand. And yet here we are.
Then we all lost.
No one blamed you, Bruce.
I did.
So, way back when I talked about Winter Soldier, I pointed out how wonderful it was that pointlessly gendered tropes had been turned on their heads. Nat wasn't the love interest, she was the plucky sidekick.
The nurse that lives across the hall from you, she seems kind of nice.
Secure the engine room, then find me a date.
I'm multitasking.
I just want to reiterate how huge that decision was in pulling the Black Widow out of the often malicious trope she started from. She wasn't a femme fatale, she was just a spy, and Steve learned that he could trust her in spite of her job and how good she is at it.
I'll engage. You hit the south escalator of the metro.
Shut up and put your arm around me. Laugh at something I said.
It's a tough way to live.
It's a good way not to die, though. I blew all my covers. I gotta go figure out a new one.
It might take a while.
I'm counting on it.
But the interactions with Bruce and Tony are much more based on her original 1960s comics iteration, where anything she does may be a ploy, and it is in your best interest not to believe anything she says. She's the Black Widow. She can eat you for lunch.
You weren't quite strong enough, so I'll have to finish it myself. Sever the nerve.
So because of this, she doesn't befriend many minor characters.
At least recognize me.
Most of her positive relationships develop off screen.
We're still friends, right?
Depends on how hard you hit me.
And the most well-known Avenger does not trust her.
Then you know that Stark trusts me about as far as he can throw me.
So they made a lot of effort to modernize her character. Her suit in Iron Man 2 is blue in effort to be less sexy. Her suits were also deliberately more functional than figure-hugging. Iron Man 2 makes it clear that ogling her is a mistake and will make you miss what is important. Avengers celebrated her using the sexist way she was perceived to trick men into giving her information. Winter Soldier had Steve absolutely depending on her skills to survive. Age of Ultron was a bit of a regression, but Civil War had her being the cool head in the situation, and she had to conveniently leave before the stakes could be raised further. But how the other characters treat her supersedes what happens with the plot. What people remember from Iron Man 2 is this pose. This poster from Avengers. How bad a girlfriend she was in Age of Ultron. Kind of to both Bruce and Clint, who people assumed was romantic.
I've been compromised.
Tony and Bruce don't trust her. She sure does get around with the dudes on the team, and she doesn't seem to have any other relationships. So, was it better than the early comics? Yeah, but she never quite escaped the stigma under which she was originally developed. Which brings us to my last point.
That is not my story.
What is your story?
All right, for our final section, there is one more thing across the movies of the MCU that I want to talk about. What is Natasha doing during the climax of each film? And specifically, when do we need to be told what she is doing as opposed to just being able to see it? In Iron Man 2, we see this fun scene. Then she does some computer stuff, which we are told means freeing Rhodey.
You got your best friend back.
But for the rest of the climax, we see Tony and Rhodey fight Whiplash, and we never see Nat again.
You got one more drone incoming.
This one looks different.
In Avengers, we see her as part of the fight, but she does leave partway through, and we see her close the portal, but we also see Tony do something with more obvious effect on ending the fight. In Winter Soldier, we see her do this cool fight and then do computer stuff, but then we see everyone else actively destroying the helicarriers. Yeah, what she's doing brings down Hydra, but we just get this line
And it's trending.
and don't see any results except the obvious things caused by Steve and Sam. Then, in Age of Ultron, we see her as part of the fight a couple times, but then she fails at the one unique thing she could do in this movie and gets carried away unconscious. And then in Civil War, she is part of the airport fight, but only the first half before she disappears to show up here. And then we never see her again, and the actual climax of the film has nothing to do with her. Infinity War has this bit, which is nice. Good for her to have something to do, especially in a film with not a lot of her, so shockingly the best one on the list so far. And of course Endgame has her drop off the face of the movie midway. Yeah, none of this could happen without her getting the stone, but we don't even see her do that. Clint visually gets the stone.
Let me go.
But finally, we have the Black Widow movie, and she is obviously heavily involved in all of it, being the center of the action, with Dreykov, with the Widows, with Taskmaster, basically getting to be part of the wrap-up for everything in the story. I bring all of this up because Marvel is famous for its bombastic climaxes, and there is a clear disconnect between what Nat is actually doing during the climax and what people remember, understandably. Film is a visual medium, after all. So basically, while I can, and have, describe how absolutely essential she is to the plots of really any movie in which she appears, that is because I am specifically paying attention to her. If you go through any of these scenes and even just list everything that happens, her contributions to the visual language of film generally pales significantly compared to the rest of the cast, whose clear actions raise the stakes. And this really undervalues her as a significant part of the MCU to the general audience. This fight is all about Tony. Her important idea to go take care of the portal is undercut by all of this nuke stuff, and the culmination of Tony's arc. This scene with Cap and Bucky is obviously far more memorable, not to mention that what she is doing still needs Fury to come in and actually accomplish it. This is a Cap movie, so her letting him go is definitely going to be considered how she's coming over to his side instead of part of her arc. There's way too much else going on for this to be memorable, to be honest. And of course, she has no part in the end of this movie either. Let me be clear, I definitely love when she gets her own task to do that fits her
Very specific skill set.
instead of just
Punch your way out of this one.
But that doesn't change the optics of her presence as usually one of the only female characters, which basically boils down to cool fight, then go do some plot nonsense while other people have even cooler fights. I found that a surprising number of people complained about the ending of Black Widow when I saw it as Nat finally getting to finish out a movie.
Not a fantasy, it's unfinished business.
You can't watch this without being very aware of what she's up to during the end scenes, and that's really the first time this has happened for her.
And I'm not gonna leave you.
So let's put all of that into context. Now, I think one thing to bear in mind is that the movie landscape looked quite different in 2010 when Natasha first appeared. And though we had to wait over a decade for her to get her own film, it really wouldn't have been the same if it was earlier. Just consider the old Whedon Wonder Woman script that fortunately was never made. Black Widow came out after Wonder Woman was DC's most popular movie, and after Captain Marvel and Black Panther proved that having diverse leads could still make, let me check here, all of the money. You can even tell the difference from the posters. Nat gets a butt shot or something similar in the first few movies, until Winter Soldier, when fortunately someone else took those over for her. I know it's to show off his arm, but it is very funny to me how many of his promo images have the same pose as Nat's sexualized ones. Even Ultron gets in on it. Thanks for taking one for the team, guys.
Thank you for your cooperation.
Anyway, I was going to compare the Black Widow movie to the Captain Marvel movie in my previous video, but I don't really think it's fair to do so. Phase 4 has been a great time, where the stories coming out are unapologetic for what they are. Black Widow has a female lead, and most of the cast you're expected to empathize with are female. There is no previously known male character to get butts in seats. The same for Shang-Chi, which takes us to China and does not care if seeing only Asian characters is a problem for you. Even he is South Asian. In the theaters, we've gotten the Mighty Thor and the Scarlet Witch as co-leads. At home, we've gotten women and bi-POC characters getting their own stories. WandaVision took us through the mental state of a woman in grief without flinching away from that. Falcon and Winter Soldier made it clear that Sam Wilson is the new Captain America. Loki turned out to be co-led by Sylvie. Moon Knight has the Scarlet Scarab.
En si superhero Freya?
Miss Marvel and Hawkeye are both chiefly the stories of young women. All of this is to say that the Black Widow movie came out at exactly the right time, and even releasing it in Phase 3 would probably have had more familiar characters show up for the presumed white male audience to have a reason to see it.
Family. Back together again.
But this is bittersweet because we had Nat for so long and they never let her live up to her potential. Miss Marvel pays more tribute to her than Endgame did, and Clint's part of Hawkeye is all about his relationship with Nat because that was missing before. And all of this just compounds how upset I was by her death. If she hadn't died, who knows what kind of awesome stories she would get to be in now.
I have lived a life. My only regret is that you didn't get to live yours.
I am looking forward to new stories about the widows and Yelena especially. It's nice that the torch was passed in such a thoughtful way in Black Widow.
You should be the one to tell him it's over.
However, I am still reminded of how that went in the comics, when Yelena tried to take the Black Widow title from Natasha by killing her. Logan says that the Black Widow is a legend, and legends aren't made so cheap. And I agree, she is irreplaceable. As Natasha herself says, I am the Black Widow, and even death cannot take that from me. One question I ask in these videos is if the female character was more than a love interest. And I address that in each individual video from this series, so instead I want to talk about Natasha's legacy as one of the first major female characters. Specifically about how the deaths, and writing in general, of female characters has perhaps changed because of her. Before Natasha's death, we had not lost many ladies, just a couple of moms, really, and then Gamora, and I do hate to be insensitive, but she had a fairly significant part in the very next film, so it's hard to think she's actually gone. But Nat is gone. And yes, the Black Widow movie came out after this, but do you really think we'll see ScarJo as Nat again? Even in someone else's story? If we were, it would have been in Hawkeye with Clint and Yelena. So Nat may not be the first woman to die, but she does seem to be the first permanent death of a major female character. Since then, we've had a few more that look permanent. Peggy, of course, predeceased Nat, but her show was on at the time, and we still ended the Infinity Saga on her. And we've seen her slaying in multiverse shenanigans more recently. Then there was Aunt May, and she got to say the franchise's most memorable line when she did so.
You have power, and with great power, there must also come great responsibility.
And finally, Jane Foster, who first got to be
Mighty Thor!
To be a real hero going after the bad guy.
I'll accept Dr. Jane Foster! She's just my first bad guy.
You never forget your first.
Wanna keep fighting. I'm the Mighty Thor.
Who they win against. And then she dies in a battle with cancer, which we are shown means she gets to go to Valhalla.
Welcome to Valhalla.
I do not expect to see her again, though of course I'd love to, but this is why Nat's death was so difficult for her fans. Not because it was out of character, not because we were surprised by the stakes, but because it was so, well, disrespectful. She wasn't someone's mom. She was one of the Avengers, and she didn't even get to face off with the villain. She didn't get a victory like everyone else. Yeah, Tony and Cap basically die in Endgame after they win, but they both had trilogies first, and Tony appears in so many other films as well. Their stories were nearing an end, as was telegraphed to the audience. But Natasha? She didn't even make it halfway through this movie, and we never knew her story. In the climaxes of the last several films, all she did was lose, and she didn't get to be there for the final victory.
You know, I wish there was a way that I could let her know that we won.
She knows.
But that's not going to happen again.
No good they'll be left.
Already in Phase 4, we have gotten several female-led stories, and those who have died, or died, got to do some really cool stuff first.
What mouth?
In my Endgame video, I closed it out fairly bitterly about Natasha's legacy, that being underwritten, disrespected, and then written off might be the fate of the rest of the characters in the MCU. But I have been so happy with Phase 4 proving me wrong. We've gotten better stories about the ladies, and even if a few may not appear again, they had a hell of a good time before heading off into that good night. So if Natasha Romanoff's real legacy is that female characters are getting actually fleshed out and telling their own stories, well then, I think that's what she deserves.
Can you help me find Natasha? I need to tell her I'm okay.
Asked her if she was scared. All she could think about is that you were safe. Nothing was gonna stop her, Elena. You know Natasha.
Thank you for listening to me talk one last time about my favorite MCU character. For our next episode, we're taking a look at Pocahontas, just in time for Thanksgiving. Please like, comment, subscribe, ring the bell, buy me a coffee, join my Patreon, all of those things, so you don't miss it. See you then.